Alright, so I'm gonna do this with the video, but I'm thinking about changing it back to my old, just having a picture up, because this is really boring with just you looking at my ugly face. So I'm gonna try and do that coming up. I'm gonna get another mic and figure it out. But tonight, I was gonna review the Amazing Spider-Man movie. I told you I would review it, and Uh, I saw it at the midnight. I went on the midnight opening release, and it was kind of cool because I work at a movie theater, so it was kind of neat, you know, being able to do that. But before I talk about that, I would like to, talk about my first opinions of it when I first heard that they were rebooting Spider-Man. And when I first heard, I wasn't very happy. I thought, this is going to be too soon. It's not even going to be. I mean, it's going to be just a few years, and they're going to already start an origin again. It hasn't even been just has been 10 years, I think. And I just thought, it's not time for that. And I was really nervous. And when I heard of the casting, I heard Emma Stone was going to be Gwen Stacy, and I thought, well, that's good that they're going to have Gwen Stacy in the movie. And I have a huge crush on Emma Stone, so that's a plus. And then I heard Andrew Garfield was going to be playing Spider-Man, and I never had heard of him, and not a lot of people had at the time. I mean, people knew him from The Social Network, but I hadn't seen that yet. And so then finally I saw, The Social Network, and I thought he stole the movie in that. I thought he was, the most interesting character out of that movie. And I really like that movie too, by the way. But so I thought, maybe he'll do good. He looks a lot like Peter Parker to me, and that never changed. But yeah, so I mean, I didn't know what to think, and I saw the first teaser trailer, and I was like, whoa, it's like the third or the first person kind of view. You just see his arms. It's kind of like you know a video game, and I thought, man, this is really neat. And I saw the costume, and I thought, this costume. I wasn't sure what to think at first, but after I saw it in other angles, I really liked it. And it was great. And then the more and more the trailers came out, the more excited I got for the movie. And so then here we are with me, going to the midnight, and I had pretty high expectations. I thought, they're getting this, what I've seen so far, they're getting it really right. They're getting it, really just well thought out, and I feel like they've really taken what Sam Raimi has done and really just said, okay, this worked, this didn't work. Other superhero films and did the same thing, and so I thought, maybe they're gonna really make this good. And I remember seeing the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in theaters back in 2002 or 2003. I think it's 2002, but it was amazing to see how great computer animation has gotten, and it was great to see Spider-Man on screen and not so corny, like the 60s or the 70s Spider-Man movie that I watched all the time. I hated it, and I always thought, man, I wish they could make a good Spider-Man, and that's what they did with the 2002 version. But as I got older, I started seeing the flaws in those movies very vividly. And I remember, just thinking, Tobey Maguire's a little goofy. He didn't really play Peter right. They didn't really follow the comic book too much. They did, and to an extent, and then they kind of lost track, and then they tried to add people like Gwen Stacy in the third movie. And I was, really disappointed in how it went. And out of the three, I would say Spider-Man 2 is probably my favorite, but it's kind of hard now, And so I watched The Amazing Spider-Man, and I have to say that this is probably my favorite movie of the summer. And I know The Avengers is out, and I know The Avengers is probably better, but for me personally, I liked it more than The Avengers for a couple of reasons. And I would say the first reason is probably that they got it right. They got the characters right. They got the writing was perfect. It was followed closely to the comic book, but added their own little stuff to it. I really liked that. The casting was perfect. Finally got to see the Lizard, and I think the biggest thing to me is it was very relatable. And when you talk about Spider-Man, relatable is one of the most important words, in my opinion. And even sometimes in the comic books, I can't relate to Spider-Man anymore. But with this movie, I just got out of high school, so it was really, really good to see, him in high school the whole movie, and him, going through the day-to-day life of being a high school student. Even though it's still movie high school, they did a lot of things that really made me be like, oh, well, I did that when I was in high school, just a couple weeks ago. And I love how they made Peter this kind of, instead of a nerd, he was the social outcast instead of the nerd, because when I saw the other Spider-Man when I was older, the one with Tobey Maguire, I always thought, he doesn't look like a nerd to me. Why is he getting picked on so much? And they knew that with Andrew Garfield too, and it was nice to see, them realizing that that's not going to work. So let's try to make him more of the social outcast, and you really see it in the first scene. But I'm not going to spoil anything. You see it in the first scene a little bit with him in high school, and with Flash Thompson. But in the music and everything, I mean, everything that he liked in the movie is stuff that teenagers like now. The music that's played, the posters in his room, and just some of the things that he likes to do, like skateboarding, and some of the clothes he wears. Like, I wear a lot of the clothes he wears, and it's really neat to be able to relate to Spider-Man again. And once he gets the powers and everything, it's just even better. And everybody brought their A game, I thought, in this movie. All the actors were perfect. When they did the origin, everybody complains that the origin is kind of just a rehash, and maybe a little, but I put that aside because I realized this origin is so much better than the original one that they did in the Tobey Maguire movies. It's original, and yet it still has the same feel of what you are supposed to feel in those scenes with the whole Uncle Ben stuff and the origin and whatnot. And people are saying this is probably the best origin of Spider-Man that they've seen in comic books and in movies and in TV shows and everything, and that's saying something. And I loved the villain. We never saw the Lizard before, and I do feel bad for the guy who played Dr. Kirk Connors in the 3 movies and never became a Lizard. But I really enjoyed the performance in this one, and I really just enjoyed seeing him. And they didn't overuse the villain, and sometimes that's the best thing to do. I love how they just kept Peter in the spotlight in this one. I'm incredibly excited for the sequel. It's going to be great, I think. But even if they don't, even if they're not as good, this one will by far. This is still my favorite Spider-Man movie I've seen, and it's the best interpretation of him. And another thing that I wanted to mention was the music, and I really liked the Danny Elfman music in the other Spider-Man movies, but this one just blew it out of the water. I'm sorry. I really, really loved the music in this one. With people like Danny Elfman, he's kind of a hit or miss. Not from his music, but just with the movies he does. And there are some Danny Elfman movies that he's done that, are very good. And, when you get to that point where you've done so many movies, some of them good, some of them bad, you get the same kind of music through other movies. So there may be some riff in a song or in part in a measure of the music that reminds you of a bad movie, and one that reminds you of a good. And that's kind of what happens with composers in movies. But this one, I loved it. This isn't a big spoiler, but the final sequence with Spidey having to swing to Oscorp. So I'm gonna say swing to Oscorp. That music. very triumphant and very original, and I really, really dug the music there, and um, man, it felt like Spider-Man. I'm excited to see what they do with the rest of this now that they have a good setup. And I highly recommend seeing this movie. If you think this, I've seen the 3 Spider-Man movies before. I don't want to see the origin again. Go see it because it's a different origin, different villain, different actors, and it's done just better. If you're saying, I really don't know if I can get around, the new actors. I really got into the actors from the 3 movies. I don't blame you. I mean, I grew up with those actors too, but I think if you are a big enough Spider-Man fan, you will be able to put that aside and just see for yourself that this is what I've been waiting for, and it's just really great to have a good Spider-Man back, and even in the comics, I've been reading his comics recently too, by the way, which I'll get to in another video, but even in the comics for the last couple of years with Brand New Day and all that. It's not, Spider-Man's not been having a good time, but I think he's going to make a good comeback here. But yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say about it. Good or bad comments. They're all welcome. Just because this is still, even though it's a great movie, there are going to be a lot of people that are not happy with just a reboot so quickly. I'm able to get by it, but we'll see what other people say. But that's really all I have to say before I ramble on anymore. I really hope you enjoyed the movie.